Today we're going to be covering how to use the Kaoss Pad as a MIDI controller on your computer. There seems to be several people trying to do this and they seem to be having some problems, so I figured I'd make this video to hopefully make it a little more clear. First thing we need to do is we need to set the Kaoss Pad up for our MIDI control. So we're going to go over here to our software to begin with. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. When you open up the KP3 editor, first thing you want to do is go to External Control and Global, and you want to go ahead and click on Receive. Now, during this port, if you get an error message, it probably means that you've tried to set your Kaoss Pad up as a controller before, and you probably have some things disabled. So let's go ahead and go through those items to make sure that they are enabled first. To get into external control, what you need to do is hold down Shift and press the number 8. This will take you into external control, which sets the Kaoss Pad up as the actual MIDI controller. However, the MIDI controller on the Kaoss Pad does a lot more than just send control commands. So hold down Shift again and press MIDI filter, which is the number 4. And this will take you into a series of items you can turn on and off. To turn them on and off, you're going to use the knob. Simply push down on the knob to see what the setting is set to. As we can see right now, our MIDI clock is set to internal. That's fine for most cases. So press the tap button to go back. Go to Program 9, press the button in again. Make sure it reads Enabled. If it reads Disabled, you want to turn the knob until it says Enabled and then press right. And that'll take you completely out of external control, so Shift 8, then Shift 4 to get back in. And you want to go through each thing and make sure they're all enabled. And this is only so the computer can communicate with the Kaoss Pad. Otherwise, you're going to receive errors that it's timed out or the device is not found. So we're going to go and press Shift to get out of it, since we have ours set up to work properly. And we're going to go ahead and go back to our software side. Over on the software side, once you've clicked Received and received your control settings, as you see, mine are a little different. The first thing you want to do probably is go over here and click on Pad Touch. And at first it's going to be a bright red square up here where it says Pad Touch and everything is going to be enabled. What this does is every time you touch the Kaoss Pad screen, this part right here, it acts as a giant button. The problem with that is that if you have it set up like I do here, where I have 8 separate controls, every time you touch the keypad, it's actually going to send out 2 controls. It's going to send out the touch for the pad, and it's going to send out the control for what I have here as sliders. So go ahead and go up, click on that to disable it, and at this point you can actually go ahead and click on Transmit. It's going to ask if we want to overwrite it. Go and click Yes. And before I do this, I want to get the screen up here for the Kaoss Pad so you can see exactly what it's going to do. Once I click on Yes here, it's going to do the little lines cross. That's when you know that it's communicating with the computer. You don't want to turn the Kaoss Pad off while it's doing that. It's hard to brick the Kaoss Pad, but I have seen some instances where people have screwed around with the pad while they're doing it and bricked it. If you do that, you either have to send it into Korg so they can service it, or you can follow some of the tutorials to try to unbrick your Kaoss Pad. It's very expensive to brick it. It's about a $300 piece of equipment, so you really don't want to mess it up. So with Pad Touch disabled, it's now time to set everything else up. Go and click on Pad Assign. And as you can see, the way I have mine set up right now, I have 8 separate controls from 0 up to, I believe, 127 for each control. And you can see each one has its own command control number, and they're all on MIDI channel 1. You can actually mix and match these if you want to, but for our purposes we're going to leave those all the same. You can also go in and disable each section of the pad if you want to. This can come in handy, say you only need 4 or 5 of the controls and you don't want the rest of them to work, you can just go ahead and disable those. Now let's go through the different patterns that the touchpad has. Pattern 1 is the default. As you can see, you have 8 separate controls split up into different portions of the screen. Actually, in this section, I only see 7 controls. They go around the edge of the screen and then diagonally across the middle of the screen. Pattern 2 looks like this, where it actually works from the inside out. Each section is a different button. I believe these only have one command. They work as a button. So if you just put your finger in the middle of the control, or middle of the pad, that's going to be a control. And then anywhere along this outside line is going to be control number 2, 3, and 4. Pattern 3 starts at 1 in the middle, and then the value increases, I believe, as you go out. I haven't used this one, so I'm not exactly sure on that. Number 4 is what I like to use the most. It gives me 8 separate controls, so I can control volume or alpha channels like an onyx-vj. It just gives you a lot more options as far as controllers go. Number 5 also gives you 8 controls, but it splits from the top of the screen to the bottom, 1 through 4 across the top, and 5 through 8 across the bottom. Number 6 does the same thing as number 4, except instead of diagonal, they're horizontal. So you can have all your controls set up. And then we have number 7, which again gives you the 8 controls, but this time vertical instead of horizontal. Like I said, I like to use pattern 4 because it just gives me the easiest controls and the most controls. You can also set up the effects depth knob as a controller, the slider, the mute button, all 4 of the bottom sample banks, and all 8 of the top control buttons, which are used for slicing, but in this case they'll be set as toggle switches for different MIDI controls. The one downside to the Kaoss Pad I've noticed is that you cannot set it up so that the lights turn on and off when the buttons are active.